Hi everyone, welcome to the Tableau tutorial. So this screen is basically Tableau is open. You might not see all this stuff here, so this is just kind of previous work that I've done in Tableau. But if you see over here, you can connect to a lot of different types of data. Um, like from Tableau server, you can connect to a file from Microsoft Excel, PDF file. If you click more, some different things come up. Um, you don't really need to know this stuff now, but just know that Tableau can connect to a lot of different types of data. And you're not going to break anything if you click on anything. So if you scroll all the way to the bottom, it says Saved Data Sources. We're going to work with the sample superstore. So just give that a click. And now you should see a blank worksheet. So Tableau calls them worksheets. And the whole thing is called a workbook. On the side, you have dimensions. So this is kind of more stuff that you can slice your quantitative measures by. And then measures here, which you can see, this is more of the quantitative information. So sales, profit ratio, profit. And we're going to really use I'm going to show you a little bit about how to slice your data by dimensions and your measures. Also, if you go all the way over here, show me. This we'll use this in a second, but it will tell you how to create different types of graphs. So if you want this pie chart, for example, it says one or more dimensions or one or two measures, which I'll discuss in a second. So let's get started. So Tableau is pretty user-friendly. I'm just clicking this once. Sorry. And you can drag. So drag this over here, or you can double click. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you can do is let's just double click sales. So you double click sales and you see in the rows and the columns. This is made up of columns and rows like in Excel. It's just a lot more visual. So I just double clicked sales and it went straight into the rows. If you don't like that, the best thing, one of the best things about Tableau is this little back button up here. So undo, you can also press on your keyboard Control Z, just like in Microsoft Word or something. So go back and it's gone. So if you don't like sales there, then you can just get rid of it. It's pretty easy. And I encourage you before we go ahead to just play around with Tableau. That's the only way you're going to learn it. So I double clicked sales. I'm just clicking this once and dragging it. You can also drag this into the rows. You can drag it into columns. That doesn't look very good. Let's drag it back to rows. And you created your first bar chart. So that's pretty good. But this, okay, your boss might be like, okay, let's get the sum of sales. Hover over this, it says, pretty large number there, but that's not very interesting data. So let's slice this data. Let's go to a dimension. So if you drag segment into columns, whoa, the data actually changes by customer segment. So you can see down here, if you widen this a little bit. So this is the consumer segment, the corporate segment, and the home office. So that's a little more interesting. So I'm just kind of dragging this here. Consumer, corporate, home office. The sum of sales is, $1 million. Then corporate. So you're doing pretty well in the consumer segment. You are doing fairly well in the corporate segment, I guess. You don't really know what well means yet. That's really more in the KPI lesson. And sales, right? You have to define what good means basically. And home office. So this graph is pretty good also, but maybe we want something a little bit more detailed. So if you go under the dimensions and you drag country/region, so now we have kind of a more in-depth graph here. So first we have this United States. If you click on up here, you can say, whoa, we have a lot of stuff. These are basically the states, city. So that's a lot of information in a bar graph. So I'm just going to go back. But if you can just see, I just want to show you that you can play with the data. So if you want to do it by state, you can even just drag this back and keep state. I might not keep this as a bar graph because it's kind of hard to read by state. But you can go ahead and basically do whatever you want with this. You can drag a lot of different stuff in here. So for example, you have a segment, maybe you could drag category over here and kind of mess around with visualization. Remember, a lot of this has to do with storytelling as well. So it depends on what kind of story you actually want to tell with your data. So you have product category over here now. So you have 3 segments and you have 3 categories. You have furniture, office. So this graph looks pretty good, right? So you're basically, there's 3 dimensions, customer, corporate, home office. You have furniture within that. So this graph shows a lot of information that's pretty simple, and we made it very simply. If you want to dive in there, I just clicked the plus sign on category. Boom. It divides it further into subcategory. And manufacturer, that might be one level. So I'm just dragging this back over and just kind of dropping it in here. You can also take this out. And that's a pretty interesting graph right there, right? So you have consumer, corporate, you have these big categories up here. You have the sales number on the left, and you have the different types of subcategory appliances, which is equal here. So this graph looks pretty clean, I would think. But what if we made it a little more interesting by dragging profit over here? So you can drag profit into the labels. This might be a little bit misleading. So you have the sales numbers here, and then this kind of assumes that this bar graph is the sales number, but it's actually showing you the profit numbers. So I'm just going to undo that. It's probably a little bit misleading. And you want clean graphs, you want good storytelling. But you could give this another dimension. So maybe if you even dragged, these are buttons, so you can drag profit into the color and say, well, you have the sales numbers here, but the color actually indicates the profit. So maybe you have good sales, but the profit is really bad. So if you go into color, click edit colors, my favorite is red, green, diverging, because red usually means bad and green means good. If you click apply, click OK. So if you look at basically the sales and profit kind of ratio here, you have, if you go over here, the really dark green means good profit, dark red means bad, and tall bar graphs mean good. The short bar graphs mean bad sales. So if you have a red short, it's probably not good. Or if you have a tall red, that would be bad. So this is a lot of sales, but your profit's actually really bad. So remember, if you go back to just the sales numbers, yeah, you have maybe good sales numbers, but if you look at it in terms of sales and profit, the segment consumer tables, your profit is really down even though your sales are up. So you might want to actually look deeper into that. And think about how quickly I just created this graph. Of course, I've used Tableau before, but I encourage you just to mess around with Tableau. So if you want to name your sheet, you know, sales and profit bar chart. I just pushed enter. Now the title's up here. So there you go. So let's create another graph. All right, so let's create another graph here. I just added category up here. So let me start over. Basically, I'm going to double click sales, or you can just drag it in here. And then I'm going to double click category. You could just drag it up here. So you're kind of creating the same graph up here. You can also make it one layer less. I just undid that. So what I want you to do is scroll up here to the Show Me, click it. Now that we have a dimension and a measure, we can just click these buttons over here and create different visuals. You're not subject, it automatically defaults to bar charts, but you don't have to do that, of course. This is a visualization software. That would be not very fun. So click Show Me. Again, I just clicked it once. We'll do a highlight table. I think this used to be called the filled map, but we'll create a highlight table. So just click it. So there you go. So you have furniture, office supplies, technology. It made it into, if you look at this marks card down here, this color button right here corresponds to color, and this corresponds to label. So color is blue. If you undo Show Me, you can see the legend here. The darker blue, dark blue means good, and the light blue means worse. The label is actually the numbers listed here, and then this is the category. So if you did this, you have some more, you have another one. So you get some pretty good stuff going on here. Then you can also go back to Show Me. Maybe you change this to a bubble. So I just basically went to Show Me, I clicked bubbles. You need one or more dimensions, one or two measures. And notice that what Tableau did is, if you look at the buttons, so this little one is size. So size of the button means the bigger the bubble, the larger the sale. The text is the category. The text is also a subcategory, so it says office supplies binders. And then the color is the category as well. So red is the technology category, blue is the furniture category, and orange is the office supplies category. So if you look at this, it's kind of hard to know what's going on here. But you can kind of see that technology and phones have big sales, while the little bubble office supplies, fasteners have small sales, basically. Now let's create another one using Show Me. So let's create a tree map. Just click this. Boom, you have more. You have size, sales, color, sales, category, and subcategory. So again, technology, category, phones, the bigger the square is sales, and then you have category here. So I want you to think about these labels. I think this graph is screaming for more context. So you can edit this label right here. So just click this, click these little buttons here. So what I want you to do is type sales and click apply. Oops. Okay, that didn't actually work, so just delete that. I'm sorry. So just go to cancel. You need to actually add the sales. So basically it just showed up as sales. You can actually add the sales to the label. So if you drag sales into label, it comes up with this number. So click the label again, delete this. I'm just deleting this. And now that Tableau knows that the label should be sales, it added this here. So take a look at the graph here, and it says technology phones, and then it says $330,000. That doesn't really make any sense contextually because the person looking at this doesn't know that that means sales. So if you go back to the label, sorry if I'm going too fast, click here, click the little buttons, you need to give this some text. So type sales, colon, space, click apply, boom. The technology phones labels. Now it makes sense more contextually. Also, if you want to be interested in profit, you can drag profit into label as well. Again, notice that that just shows the number, so nobody knows what that means. Go back to label, and you guessed it. We will type profit, click apply, click OK. Now you have sales and profit. Now I don't really like this blue color. Again, I'm going to go click on color, click edit color, go to red, green, diverging, click apply. Okay. Now to me, this is more intuitive. Green is good. Dark red is really bad. It's very instantaneous. Red bad, green good. Also, these color schemes are kind of weird because it says the size and the color are the same thing. I don't really like that. So maybe drag profit over to color. I'll change color, of course, so we can just change that back. But now, so the big ones are sales, and the color is profit. So you want big green, right? So if you change that to red, green, diverging, apply, okay. So you want dark green, big. This one's good. This is big red though, not good. Bigger, less red, very easily identifiable, at least to me. So this again is sales and profit. What was this graph called again? Tree map. Sorry about that. Tree. So don't forget to name your graphs and label them. Let's create another one. So let's create another one. It used to be called filled map. Now it's called map, I guess. They changed it, so that's okay. Technology updates, so you gotta update your terminology. So to do that, you need one geo dimension down here. It shows you, so we're gonna create this little chart here. So one geo dimension and one measure. So go back over here. Let's just highlight state. So just click state and click sales. So you can't click them both at the same time. So what you need to do is hold down your shift key. So click state, hold shift, click sales. You can let go of shift. And then over here, the show me kind of illuminates and you can play around with stuff all you want. But I'm just gonna go ahead and click this. Boom. You know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that was extremely hard to do. And now all you have to do is click a few buttons, and I'm still very impressed by it. It may seem simple, but to someone of a certain age, it's still pretty astounding. So basically, now you have a kind of a similar map to what we've been creating, only by state. So again, I'm gonna X out of show me here. I'm gonna change the color because I don't really like the blue color. You can choose whatever color you want. I just think red and green are pretty nice. So a lot of red, sales data, green. Actually, looks like most of the country is red. So, you know, if you showed this to your boss, you say, well, this isn't looking so good. You could really kind of pinpoint what's going on, and you could create some Washington, for example, graphs. You could create a graph of California to see what products are actually doing well, because this just gives you sales numbers. It doesn't really show you any products that are selling well. It doesn't show you the profit, but there's a lot of red, and this is probably pretty concerning to someone. So I would go ahead and just good practice would be to label the states. You know, you might think you know the states, but it's just more intuitive to put a label in. So basically what I just did was clicked on state and dragged it into the label button. So I think that's pretty good practice. So one thing you want to do also is to, for example, make this graph a little more interactive. So if you want to drag category into filter right up here, and then just check all these, or you can just push all or none. Push apply, X out of here. So all the it's for everything. Under filter, go here, go show filter. Look over here, you notice that all is checked. So what if I just want a category of furniture? Let's see how that changes. I don't have data up here. Doesn't look like it changes much. Office supplies, sales are still pretty bad. Technology, I don't know. So you can filter this by a lot of different stuff. Subcategory, manufacturer. So if you drag category into filter, select all, select apply, then go to show filter. This has a lot more categories in here. So one thing you can do is click this little bottom arrow and remove or change how it's visualized. So you can do a drop down. So just select single value drop down, and you can do maybe filter it by paper. So that doesn't look very good. Copiers, office supplies. So I guess copiers is under technology. So you can create a lot of different. So how are phones doing? Not so good. Tables, not so. Tables in Washington are pretty good. So this is really creating more of an interactive visual. This is a good way to easily create a visual here. And you can mess around with a lot of different filters by manufacturer, for example. So a lot of good stuff here, I think. So let's just call this map of sales with filter. It's probably not the best name for a graph, but we'll just go with it. All right, let's create a scatter plot. So what you want to do is, let's do a sales by profit. So drag profit into rows. And you want to drag sales into columns. And then all we really have is this. So we need to slice this by some dimensions. So let's drag, select our dimensions here, region into the color button. So notice what Tableau is doing. Every time you drag that into color, it's creating a region, south, central, east, west. So these are regions of America. So it made these different colors. And then let's slice this a little bit more, and let's experiment with the shape button. So these shapes are circles, and let's kind of make that a little bit better. So drag segment into shape. So pretty straightforward scatter graph. So you have color, region, you have segment that are shapes, so circle, square, plus sign. You have sales at the bottom, profit here. So really you want something with a lot of profit and a lot of sales, right? So you can see the West customer is doing pretty good. These things are also pretty small. So click on shape and, well, first of all, sorry, you can select whatever shape you want. So if you're looking at gender stuff, KPI stuff, ratings, weather, it'll just change the shapes. So you can, I mean, if you wanted to make customer or consumer a sun, you would just, and then apply. So now consumer is sun, which doesn't really make any sense. But it's kind of fun to make different shapes just because you can. So we'll leave that alone. So click on size, and these are pretty small. So if you click on size here, you can actually drag this over. That might be a little too big. Remember, you're trying to tell a story here. So you want to make sure people can see the story and see the data. Drag that over, looks pretty good there. You can do click on shape. Oh, where did this? So these are the different shapes. If you wanted to change the circle, again, you could be this arrow, this X, whatever you want. So we'll cancel out of that. So right now this looks pretty good. I think the Scatterplot needs some context though, because it just looks, you don't want to read the labels too much. So what's going on here? Let's make this a little bit more detailed. So let's do customer name. So drag customer name into this detail label. Boom. So now we have a lot of different data. Maybe this is too big still. So we have a lot of blue, you can tell, concentrated here. What this does is it gives you a lot of more detailed pieces of data. And sales, for customer name, so this really enables you to see which customer is really doing well in terms of profit and sales. So a lot are hovering down the 0 net here. You don't really want that. You want some good profit through sales, or you want some good profit in general. So what are these little outliers doing? So now you can actually, maybe we'll make this a little bit bigger, hover over. So customer name Raymond Bush, or region West. So you can say, hey, Raymond is doing pretty well. Tamara Chan, Central Corporate, doing pretty well. What's going on down here? We have a lot of sales, but we don't have a lot of profit. So you can call up Sean Miller in the South and say, hey, Sean, what's going on? Or you can look at more details about what Sean Miller has actually purchased, which you can create in another graph using information about product, subcategory, product name. So I encourage you to go ahead and look at that. So let's add a little bit more text. So let's look at profit, because profit is, of course, very important. Drag that into the labels. So now you have a really clear view of what's going on here in terms of profit. Now let's add some trend lines. So right click on the scatter plot. Where is it? Well, hold on one second. Sorry about that. It looks like I actually clicked outside of the graph. See this little arrow? This is a white space. This is the graph paper here, basically. So if you want a bigger graph, just kind of scroll over here. You can also do this, fit width, entire view, standard. So that's another little button. Right click within the grid lines, do trend lines, show trend lines. Now you have blue. So blue central is pretty good. If you're into a little bit more stats, you have the R squared, you have the equation and the p-value, or regression equation, the p-value, east, west, and red. So you made some pretty sweet graphs here. So we'll just do scatter, sales, profit, customer, name. And I think these are pretty impressive graphs, especially for your first time using Tableau. Now let's just add them into a dashboard. So again, if you didn't see what I just did, back, there's these little buttons down here. This is to create a new worksheet. We don't want to do that, so I'm undoing it. This is to create a new dashboard. So when you create a dashboard, you look to your left, and these are the graphs we created. So basically, I just double-clicked that, double-click that, double-click that, and double-clicked that. So now you have these filters that you've created over here. That is really meant for this graph alone. But if you want to apply the filters, you just hover over the filter, click this down arrow, click apply to worksheets, and do all using this data, basically. So right now it's only on this worksheet for whichever worksheet you created it for. So now you can filter everything by, right? So not everything has this data, of course. Subcategories do the same thing, apply to worksheets, all using this data. So you can filter this by binders, office supplies, so this is a pretty good interactive dashboard. Okay, and there's another tutorial next. It's not a video or anything. Wait, forgot to name our dashboards. So sales and profit dashboard. Always name something. I'm sure these could be better named with a little more thought. But go ahead and name it. And that should be it. So again, I said there are 2 other tutorials that shows you a little bit more how to create the interactive dashboards, a little bit more interactive than this. And then one on key performance indicators. So please follow along on those PDFs and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.